7.5 years old. I was at Disneyland at Cub Scout Day, where they let you in about an hour earlier than the rest of the people, so you get to run around and get on the rides quicker without the big lines. That was the first time I was ever away from my parents. I remember it really well. Got there that morning, took off running. I got to a place called Sleeping Beauty Castle, and I was about as far as I could make it running as a little kid. I was sitting there resting. There was a song playing, which is now my favorite song in the world, called When You Wish Upon a Star, which, if you listen to the words, by the way, is actually the premise of The Secret, the law of attraction. Anything your heart desires will come to you. That became my theme song of life. And as I was listening to the song, it says, when you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dreams, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. And I was sitting there listening to that song, and I was already a little cynical at 7.5, and I said, you know, if that were true, that would be like magic. And then I turned around, and there was a magic shop. And I went, that was weird. I just said magic, and there's magic shop. I'd never seen a magic shop before. So I wandered in. The guy says, come here, kid, watch this. He goes, whew, and he did this magic trick. And I went, ah. I was like, oh, that was great. You know, and for every dime I had in my pocket, I could do that trick. So I spent my entire allowance for Disneyland and bought this magic trick. I went home and became a closet magician. I did magic all the way through grammar school, junior high school, and college, and no one ever knew I did it. I just did it in my room, and that was it. Every now and then, some company would come over, and my dad would say something like, hey, do that trick you did for me the other day, show them, and that's about it. I really didn't do it for anyone else. I mean, I really liked doing magic, and I didn't want to find out I wasn't any good at it, so I just never did it for anybody but me. Well, when I was 21 years old, my father took my girlfriend, my mother, and I to the Shrine Auditorium in downtown Los Angeles to see a live stage show, and they had Rosemary Clooney was the headliner then, and there was this magician named Shermata who was in from Japan. This was his debut week in America, and I'm watching this guy, and he's making doves come out of everywhere, and I'm just like enthralled beyond belief. My father turns to me at the end of the performance and says, you know, son, for as long as you've been interested in this, it seems like it's something you should look into. You seem to care a lot about it. Less than 30 minutes later, my father had a heart attack and died at the Shrine Auditorium. It was the very last thing he said to me. So at that point in time, I could have, because I was very close to my father, been so upset that I never did magic again. A lot of people just don't do anything again when something like that happens because it's too painful to remind them of it. I went the opposite direction. I said, okay, let's find out how good I really am. I researched all the clubs, organizations, and societies in the world and found out that the hardest one to become a member of was the Magic Castle. You actually had to pass a test of magic in front of a panel of master magicians, and you couldn't use anything bought at a magic shop. So off I went, passed my test, went on to become one of the highest paid magicians in the world. And from that, got teased about having to get up and turn the lights on, and invented an invention that changed the world. Angela?
May I help you?
Fireplace.
Oui, oui. Oh, yeah.
By the time I was 28, I actually invented a new technology. I changed the world. My invention resides in the Smithsonian today as the guy who invented voice recognition. I actually flunked computer programming in college, which is pretty funny considering I'm in the Smithsonian for developing artificial intelligence. So I thought that was kind of cool. I've always liked science, I've always liked math. I'm very geared those ways. I'm statistically oriented, permutations, combinations, and all that good stuff, algorithms. So I'm very inclined in that direction. Here's kind of like the bio that I have. At age 16, my parents signed power of attorney to me as an adult so I could play the stock market, because once they realized I actually knew what I was doing, in order to buy and sell stock over the phone, I had to have adult status. I was granted that adult status and became pretty much financially independent from that point forward by the time I was 17. By the time I was 19, I had bought a condominium on the ski slope in Mammoth, California, became a landlord. By the time I was 21, I became the youngest owner of a 7-Eleven franchise in the world, and I still own that title. No one's beaten 21 yet. By the time I was 24, I had the world champion frisbee catching dog that makes more money than most people make in a lifetime. And in case you want to know what that means, that's $1,000 a minute, 4-minute minimum for catching frisbees. The dog actually could new trajectory. It could catch a frisbee, would do a somersault in the air and land on its feet. By the time I was 26, I became one of the highest paid magicians in the world at $1,000 a day, plus travel expenses back in the 70s. Now, $1,000 today is good money. Back then it was just plain insane. Here we go.
Okay.
You know, like I said, if you YouTube me, you'll see me on stage in front of 15,000 people giving a speech. And like we just saw me earlier, you know, believe it or not, I'm actually very, very shy. If you actually had a party and invited me over to your party and there's like 25 or 30 of your friends, you'd find me plastered against the farthest wall possible with like a cranberry juice in my hand. So when it comes to dating, oh my God, that is the worst, because there, you can't walk up and say anything about you. You wouldn't want to do it. It's worse than a root canal, as you'll see from those chapters. And you'll see what happens looking for the last first kiss, which I think is her.
Well, actually, it's kind of funny. My girlfriend likes to try internet dating, and so she went on Plenty of Fish. And she called me up one day and said, I have a date with this guy. And so she called me later on that evening, and I asked her how it went. And she said, well, it didn't really go too well for us. We decided that we don't really get along, we're matched for each other. But I think you should meet him. He's an inventor. And I have a couple of inventions that I'm working on. So she said, let me see if he's online right now, and we can set up a meeting. And I said, all right. So on a Sunday morning, really early, he responds back, and so we made a dinner appointment, and he was late because there was some problems with communication that day, and then he did some magic tricks at the table, and I found him very, very interesting. He was mind-boggling to me, and I thought, wow, he intrigued me. The man is incredible. He's an incredible man. And about 2 or 3 weeks into dating, he'd asked me if I had Googled him, and I hadn't. And I kept telling him, no, I want to know who you are as a person, who you are as the child inside, because he is. He's a child inside.
So you can't just have one, you have to have more than one. And I have several.
Ooh, what are they?
They are called sugar gliders. Yes, they won't run away. I could take it to the park, it could run around and do whatever it wants, and it would be fine. Well, when you first take them out, they get a little nervous. And it's actually related to the kangaroo.
Oh, okay. So a marsupial.
It's a marsupial, yeah. And then what you do is you carry around in these pouches during the day, so you actually could travel with you.
Oh.
So anytime I'm around, especially if you ever see me on stage in a suit and tie, I generally have one of these under my coat, and people don't even know it. So this is my have pet will travel. Pocket pet, my little pocket pet.
So you'll keep them with you sometimes?
Oh yeah, I always have one with me, almost all the time. So I have various generations because they have babies, and generation A, B, C. If you ever, there's an island 26 miles across the sea, Santa Catalina Island. If you go over to Catalina Island, there's this real beautiful, about $4 million submarine that sits out there in the harbor, and it's a tourist attraction, and you can go on it. I was actually hired by Catalina Adventure Tours to design their sound systems and their audio systems and all that stuff on it. And they were having a meeting one day, and they said, we come from the glass bottom boat industry. Is there a way we could, in the submarine, feed the fish? To have people feed the fish? I said, well, just open the window and hand it to them. And they all looked at me like, is he serious? But I was kidding. And it turns out that they didn't know. They were trying to figure out a way for people in the submarine to feed the fish outside. And they couldn't come up with a way to do it. And I actually, this was just a few years ago, invented an automated fish food firing system. And it's great. The kids love it.
A specially designed feeding system lets you feed the sea creatures yourself as you launch and fire fish torpedoes from your explorer's seat.
So you can sit at your window, or portal if you will, and there's this big red button with a red and a green light, and when you hit the big red button, just like in the movies, fire torpedoes, it actually shoots food out to the fish. So the fish are happy, the kids are happy, the company's happy, everybody's happy.
You can definitely see when he's thinking, and you can feel his thoughts, and he told me he feels numbers. He feels them around him.
A long time ago I was in China, and I was the only American there, and it was late at night, and not real late, but like evening shopping hour kind of thing. So I'm wandering around the town, and I wander into this clothing shop, and I saw this sweater up on the wall, and I thought, my wife might like that. So I looked at the sweater, and I said a couple things. You basically get, how much was it? So the guy takes out the abacus, and he starts going like this, and then he writes down a price for me. And I look at him, and I look at the abacus. So I spun it around and I went, remember it's math, so I knew how to use it. And I counter-offered him the bid. He looked up and said something and they all kind of like applauded, like, oh my God, he does know how to use an abacus. So after that, the guy bowed to me, sold me the sweater, and then he gave me the abacus as a present. So I thought that was pretty cool. For years, people have said, you gotta write a book, you gotta write a book. And I kept saying, no, no one wants to read about me. And they said, no, no, you need to write a book. And so one day someone, they almost did like an intervention. They kind of got together and said, you will write the book. And I said, give me one good reason why I should write the book and I'll write the book. And they said, it will honor your mother. And I went, that's a good reason. And then they said, we'll give you a second reason. And I go, what's that? He goes, it'll help people. So that's why we've just finished the book. This is what the cover may look like, called The Charm, The Power of Positive Choice. We thought it would help people to see what can happen if you take a positive outlook on things. So that's why we wrote the book. We're in the process of getting it published right now, and apparently there's even, because of one of the chapters, chapter 12, they're looking at actually right now they are writing a screenplay and a treatment for making it into a movie or a TV sitcom at the very least. So we shall see.